welcome back to the Milwaukee Show. And today we are talking about the Boston Bruins and the pickle that they are in. Because, oh boy, this is a bit of a disaster offseason that they're about to have. A scary one, really. Because obviously, the season, I would say it went pretty well. I mean, setting the best record of all time in the regular seasons. I mean, that's nothing. There's definitely no complaints about that. But the way they got there through trading away basically their future assets and putting themselves in this real cap crunch is going to really. We're going to be really debating, was it worth it, especially when it came to what the Florida Panthers did to them in the playoffs. So I guess let's talk about it. So, season, amazing. Now this offseason could be horrifyingly terrible. Let's talk about it. So, currently for the next 3 years, but especially this upcoming year, they have no picks in the first or second round. This year, next year, and finally the year after that, I think the 25-26 season, they have the first round pick but no second round pick there. So they've only got one pick to trade in the next few years to come, okay? One first round pick. Now they've got some thirds and whatever, but thirds compared to second and first, not as valuable, right? They have 10 free agents that are on their team right now. 10 free agents. Your team is consisted of 23 players. That is almost half of your squad right there, right? Including out of those 10 are 2 RFAs in Trent Frederick and Jeremy Swayman, as well as your top 2 centermen in David Krejci and, of course, Patrice Bergeron. And with all that being said, you only have $5 million to spend on all of this. So, and not just all of that, but they currently only have 15 out of 23 players signed. They have 8 roster spots to fill with 8 of the 8 players with only $5 million to spend. That is not a good situation to be in. Not a good situation at all, because you can't even offer $1 million to each of those players. You wouldn't have enough money to spend. So that is a terrifying prospect. So without anything being said, before I go into what they could do, what's going to happen here, they are in a bad spot. $5 million to spend on 8 players. Literally impossible. You cannot give them each of those guys, 8 players, the league minimum and have enough money to spend on all of the 8 of those players. Impossible. So regardless of anything, they are going to have to move somebody out of their team. Somebody, one person, bare minimum, they're going to have to remove. One. At least one. So, first off, of course, the biggest question mark about this team is Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. Do they return? Do they retire? If they return, which I highly doubt, but if one of them returns or both of them, I would assume, like this year, that they would be between $1 to $3 million, but because of the real situation they're in, I would assume Bergeron being who he is and what he's done for this team, I would assume he'd go to $1 million. But I also highly doubt that he's coming back next year. I really don't think he's going to. His send-off, that was a goodbye. David Krejci, I could believe coming back. I don't think he's quite done yet, but who knows? He's someone I wouldn't assume that he would go anywhere else other than Boston, so I don't think he'd leave the team. But even if he stayed on the team, $1 to $3 million is still, $3 million is a hefty price for one guy with how much money they'd have left with only $2 million left before they move anyone out. So those 2 guys, it's a real question mark there. They're best 2 centermen, well, maybe best. Pavel Zacha and Coyle there, but they're 2 top centermen that is positioned on the team. It could be up in the air if they retire or even stay, and how much money would they even cost, right? So those are 2 huge question marks there. I personally don't think either of them come back. I think David Krejci, seeing the team's position that they're in, would probably rather go somewhere else than stay with the team, and especially for how much money they'd be willing to offer him. So I would assume that they would go to someone else. Now, the 2 big centerman names out there that are going, of course, are Scheifele and especially Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? And I think Dubois would especially be a perfect pick for this team, right? Perfect situation. I just feel like Dubois didn't really fit in Columbus, didn't really fit in Winnipeg. I think Dubois, being a bigger guy, big physical power forward centerman, would be perfect to put up there between Pastrnak and Marchand, or pair with Marchand or Pastrnak. One of them, I would figure they would put them between the two different lines. And I think that'd be great. But the issue is, really, they've put themselves in quite the mess here, where it's like, what the hell would they even trade away? They don't have caps. They don't have any cap room, really. So for Pierre-Luc Dubois, his qualifying offer would have to be $6 million from the Winnipeg Jets. Now, they could offer sheet him, but then if they offer sheet Dubois for enough money compared to other teams, if they would pick his, they don't have the money that I would assume Dubois would sign for. So that's already an issue for one. So they'd have to move out someone else, right? But I'm guessing after Dubois' $6 million contract, I'm guessing he wants to sign long-term somewhere, that he would go for at least $7 million for 4 years or something like that. So it just doesn't seem like a gamble worth it. Scheifele, he's got 1 year left on his contract for 6-point-something million. And for one, $5 million, already don't have enough money. They'd have to move someone out. And if they do, let's say they move out of one of my picks down here, like Matt Grishalik, trade him away, make enough room for $6 million. You only got $2 million left after that still. So still, that's not going to work. Trading for a solid, proven NHL player is just not going to be worth it. Because for one, they don't have the cap space, and two, they really don't have anything to trade away. What are the Winnipeg Jets going to be looking for out of the trades with these guys, right? They're probably going to be looking for either a proven NHL player going back, which I would assume Taylor Hall they'd be willing to take on, or a good prospect or some picks, right? And the Bruins, not really any good prospects, and definitely not any picks. So that is not going to really work for them. And Scheifele, same thing for him. So there is going to be the biggest issue. So for me, the best option for the Boston Bruins at this point is for them to go to do the safe route. Usually I'm all for teams going out there and taking a risk, but that's what the Bruins have already done, and now they have to salvage the issue that they've put themselves into. And for right now, the best option for them is to sell some of their guys, right? The biggest names probably Taylor Hall being they have 7 defensemen signed, and forwards are their issue, and they really need some to fill out their bottom lines. And Taylor Hall being the bottom rung guy of the wingers of Marchand and Pastrnak. And because they can't get rid of, I would say Charlie Coyle, but he's a centerman, a true centerman that they really can't afford to lose between him and Pavel Zacha. So Hall is going to be the one that would have to bite the short end of the stick. And for defensemen, Brandon Carlo would be my pick for who they'd get rid of, because they can't move out McAvoy, they can't move out Hampus Lindholm. My choice would be Carlo. Matt Grishalik, I think they would rather keep Grishalik because he's kind of the more like puck moving guy, and Brandon Carlo being a 6'4", I think 6'3" maybe, like big physical, great defensive defenseman player. I think they could afford to lose him, but the term is what's kind of scary with 4 years left on the contract. But regardless, they're gonna have to sell them for something. They're gonna have to get rid of them and clear up some space. If they move out these guys, they can make up between, I got $8 to $18 million that they can make in cap space. And with that money, I mean $8 million, they can have enough to spend at least $1 million on 8 players' contracts, right? And then from there, I mean, up to $18 million if they get rid of all 3 of those guys. Now, there's also their RFAs that they have, right, where Jeremy Swayman, they could lose him somehow. They could keep him on the team and wait for us to trade, but I don't really know if they're willing to. I think they got to get rid of him. Trent Frederick, I don't know how they keep him on the team either. It's a hard situation, because with $18 million to still sign 8 players, that's definitely manageable and doable. But that would be requiring them to get rid of all 3 of these players. And if they get rid of all 3 of these guys, that's even a bigger vacuum that they're going to have to fill, right? So regardless of anything, their investment into this team is definitely not going to be what it was last year. I mean, they're losing the names of, like, Bertuzzi, who was, of course, a rental. The guys like Foligno and, like, just Orlov as well being that huge acquisition at the trade deadline. They're going to be losing a lot of these guys that would be amazing if they could keep next year, but it's just not I just don't see it happening. It's just going to be too hard for them to pull off. So really, what they're going to, the best case scenario is they can move out guys like Hall, Carlo, and Gristalik and hope for two things in return. Either my pick would be an NHL ready prospect, right? Someone to go send Taylor Hall to like the Anaheim Ducks, I don't know, and get a guy like Nathan Gauthier, right? He's a centerman prospect who's probably NHL ready, 6'3", like real tough guy, especially with the Boston attitude. Think he could fit on the team. I don't know. They're gonna have to bring on some of those like NHL ready prospects or some just really good contract guys. I've been trying to think of some names, but I can't think of anyone who would be really that type of player. Like, I can't think of any good contracts right now that would really fit onto this team, because even a good contract is going to hurt this team. So I think they're just going to have to lick their wounds and deal with it, with the fact, and Bruins fans are going to have to deal with the fact as well, that this team, bar none, they're going to not be, definitely next season's not going to be the record-breaking season again. They're not going to go out there and they're not going to get 67 wins next year or something like that. It's just not going to be manageable. They're not going to do it. It's impossible with the amount of cap space they have, because they're not going to be able to go out there and get guys like Scheifele for $6 million or Pierre-Luc Dubois. They're going to have to get guys on like $2 million guys, right? $3 million guys, and that's if they can get all $18 million out there. And then they've got the black hole void of now Taylor Hall's missing, Carlo's missing, Gristalik's missing. So regardless of anything, this team's definitely going to take a big, I don't want to say huge, depending on who they can pick up. I mean, if they can make a bottom six out of guys like the Vegas Golden Knights have, and find guys like Nicholas Waugh and Carrier and Keegan Colasar and those type of players to put on this team, maybe they can salvage something, but it's going to be hard to find those type of players on one off season. And it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be tough, and next year, Bruins are definitely not going to be the dominant bees that they were this year. But they still got Pasternak and Ullmark and Marchand and McAvoy and Lindholm. They still got some really good highs on the team. Like, they're by no means going to be a non-playoff team, but their depth that really makes them a superstar team win the Stanley Cup is definitely not going to be there. Center depth is going to be huge against them. Charlie Coyle, in my eyes. I like Charlie Coyle, but he's not a top centerman. Pavel Zacha, who knows? Maybe he can make a jump into the first line and be a great player, but I don't see him being a Bergeron. I mean, I know he got 50-something points this year. I think he actually was above David Krejci, but he's a good replacement, but that bottom six is just going to hurt, and those secondary scorers, Taylor Hall freaking won the Hart Trophy one year, it is going to be missing, and that's what made them who they were last year. So next year, I would expect them to probably, after what they can pull off this offseason, I would expect them to be probably like fourth in the Atlantic. I think the Panthers are going to be amazing next year. I think Toronto, once again, great in the regular season, off-season, not so much. And then Tampa Bay, I don't think is going to fall off a cliff by any means, but I think they're going to finish above them. So I'd say 3 or 4 for the Bruins, but definitely not number 1. But that is all I got to say. I hope you found this somewhat informative or something like that, and just know just how dire the Bruins situation really is. I'm going to talk about every team, and some of them more fun than others. And the Bruins, this is just a sad talk, because this is a team that's been great for like a decade plus, and they're finally going to be facing the music these few off seasons. They don't really have any good prospects to fill in. Fabian Lysell, maybe, but no real good contracts, and I don't know what they're going to do with guys like Swayman. It's all up in the air. I have no idea. I don't even, guy like Swayman, I mean, he's a great goaltender, too. You got to think he gets at least, $3 million, and the team just cannot afford a goaltender like that, especially the backup to Linus Ullmark. There's just no way that they're going to be able to, they would rather just keep Ullmark and have a backup. So, I don't know. It's a weird, not weird, it's a terrible situation, and I don't know how they're going to recover from it. Maybe there's some crazy deal they can be making up. I know that there's somewhat talks about the third overall pick from Columbus being on the market. Maybe a guy like Taylor Hall over there, and they can get the third overall pick and draft Leo Carlson, and maybe he's NHL ready. I don't know. That would be a huge Hail Mary. That would, if it worked, that would be huge, but That's all I gotta say. So thank you for watching this. If you've made it this far, please, I'm begging you, pick up your free subscription. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, too sweet, have an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.